Beside the wreath, there is the ancient, very ancient crown of Scotland. This emphasizes that this is the United Kingdom, which we talk about, is a United Kingdom of two kingdoms, England and Scotland, brought together in an Act of Parliament in 1707. And this is very important. There is the crown, a very good shot of it. That is kept, normally speaking, in Edinburgh Castle. During the war, it had to be carefully hidden in case it was damaged by bombing or anything of that kind. Very important to the Scottish people, as is the stone of destiny upon which the future king will sit at his coronation. The stone of destiny lies under the coronation chair, and Prince Charles, as he now is King Charles, when he is crowned next year, he will sit on a chair containing the stone of destiny, which came from Scotland. The two countries are very closely bound together, and this is a Presbyterian cathedral in Scotland, and the flag that is on the coffin there is the Royal Standard of Scotland. Tomorrow, after tonight, there is the Prince's Vigil, and in a few moments, the new king, His Majesty King Charles III, and his two brothers, Prince Edward, Prince Andrew, and his sister, the Princess Royal, Princess Anne, will come and take their places at the four corners of their mother's coffin, and they will stand there for 20 minutes to pay obeisance to Her Majesty. It's been a very emotional moment, a very emotional time for the whole of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth and the 14 realms beyond these shores who call the British monarch their own monarch. Britain, of England, is the supreme head of the Church of England, the Anglican Church. But when he or she, the monarch, steps over the border into Scotland by a magic of the British unwritten constitution, they become a Presbyterian, which is the Scottish Church, the Church of Scotland, which is the church without bishops. There is a difference. They're both Christian churches, both very ancient. And the act of settlement between the two countries, part of that was that the monarch of this country would always uphold the primacy of the Protestant religion in Scotland. And that happens to this day. And when Prince Charles was sworn in as the new king, he repeated those oaths of settlement that Scotland's religious tradition would always be respected. Unprecedented scenes are these, and thousands of people are already waiting to come in to visit and to stop and to pray and to bow. And it's worth saying that these people and those in London who are thronging the Mall, and there you see Holyrood House, which is the official residence of the monarch in Scotland. Balmoral Castle is privately owned by the monarch, but this is the official residence in Scotland, and the monarch spends at least 1 week there every year during July. But all the people who are coming, and it's worth saying, they're not coming because they're being bussed in or they're being told to come or they're being regimented or they're given little flags to wave. The people are coming because they feel a great sense of loss, to use a very big word, love. They certainly love and respected Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, and I think by their presence they want to give support to the new king. He's been waiting for this for a long, long time. It's the longest apprenticeship in history. He became heir to his mother at the age of 3 years old, and his destiny has decided that he would become king. So he prepared for it, but there's nothing like actually inheriting, and now that has happened. So far, I think he's done an extraordinarily good job. Everything he's said, everything he's done, the way he's done it, has given great confidence that his will be a good reign and that he will be a very successful monarch. It will obviously, compared with his mother's 70 years, it will be a much shorter reign, but there's no reason why a short reign should not be successful. I think we can see in the background the royal party are now moving towards the vehicles, which I think will take them up the Royal Mile. It's about 2/3 of a mile from Holyrood House up to the St. Giles Cathedral, and that is true. We can see members of the royal family in uniform getting into the various Range Rovers and other vehicles to depart. During the very moving ceremonial this afternoon, they walked up the Royal Mile behind the Queen's coffin, which was in a hearse. And here you see, obviously, King Charles and the Queen Consort Camilla will be in this first vehicle. And behind them, we will try to see who is there. But Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, she was there in Royal Naval uniform today, as was her husband, Admiral Sir Timothy Lawrence. And there is the King, King Charles III, waving to the people. As I say, this is a very ancient street, very steep, very cobbled, quite difficult to walk up today, as everybody did, and obviously lined with people who are there taking photographs, applauding, and wishing them on their way. It's a very fortuitous thing. I mean, obviously, it's very unfortunate the Queen has died. Nobody knew where she would die. None of this was planned. It's all happened as it happened. But the fact that she died in Scotland and has been transported through Scotland slowly yesterday to Holyrood House reinforces the ancient bonds between Scotland and England that make up Great Britain. And the events of the last few days will have reminded people of the value of having a united kingdom. The Queen always believed in the value of a united kingdom. She said in a speech in 1977 during her Silver Jubilee that she was often reminded that she swore an oath and was anointed to become the Queen of a united kingdom. Her mother was a daughter of the Earl of Strathmore of Glamis Castle. Glamis Castle, of course, is mentioned in Shakespeare. It's a central has a central role in Macbeth, the play Macbeth. And the Queen Mother's brother, he served in a Scottish regiment, a famous Scottish regiment called the Black Watch, and he was killed in the First World War. The Queen started coming to Scotland when her grandfather, King George V, was on the throne. She made the journey to Balmoral many times. And when her uncle, Uncle David, who reigned as King Edward VIII, when he was the owner of Balmoral, she went there many times. And during the summer months, she loved to come up because in Scotland at that time of the year, it hardly gets dark at night. You have beautiful white nights, and she loved to be there. The castle was bought by Queen Victoria 150 years ago, more than 150 years ago, and then rebuilt. And she loved being there, and as does the Queen. It was, I always used to feel that the Queen was happiest when she was the Laird of Balmoral or the Squire of Sandringham House in Norfolk, when she was there in her jodhpurs and her hacking jacket with a Hermes scarf tied under her chin. Now, here you see in front of St. Giles Cathedral, next to the Court of Session, King Charles in morning dress, talking to the ministers of the kirk. He's actually in his kilt, and I think the kilt there is a sort of hunting Stuart tartan, as far as I can see from this distance. But in keeping with being in Scotland, he wears the kilt, and Queen Camilla, Queen Consort, is with him, led in by the archers. Behind there's Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, in Royal Naval uniform. The Countess of Wessex behind her, and Prince Andrew, the Queen's second son, wearing his medals and his Garter star, it should be noted. He, of course, unfortunately, is a bit of a black sheep of the family for obvious reasons at the moment. But in that phrase, the important word is family. He is a member of the family, the Queen's second son, and until the birth of Prince William, he was second. He was second in line to the throne after his brother, and even now he is still in line to the throne. It's a royal family. It's a famous family. It's arguably the most famous family, but they are people after all, and I think our hearts must go out to them because the difficulties they're going through now are immense. They're coping with this. It's all played out in public. There are tests to come, serious tests to come, and yet at the same time they're grieving for their mother, who they obviously deeply loved, and certainly the world loved her. We have seen scenes in these last few days which are entirely unprecedented, and what is remarkable to me is the spontaneous outpouring of love and devotion. You can't buy that, you can't orchestrate it, you can't order it. You can't bust people in and tell them how to feel. But they do spontaneously. There is a power of good, there is a power of virtue, and I think people recognized the virtue of the late Queen Elizabeth II of this country and her other realms across the sea. I think that's an extremely good point. But this is pageantry with a purpose, you know. It's not a pantomime with people looking as if they might have stepped out of a pack of cards. It's very important. It reinforces the continuity of the realm. A monarchy is most concerned with two things: succession and continuity. And the continuity has been seamless. The moment the poor Queen took her last breath, Prince Charles, the Prince of Wales, became king automatically. And then he was proclaimed as such the next day in London at the Accession Council. And he will be proclaimed tomorrow when he goes to Belfast in Northern Ireland, and then he goes to Wales. Around the kingdom, the four constituent parts of the United Kingdom, he will be proclaimed as the new king. And that is important. The people have to see the new monarch. They have to recognize him. Just as today, the two houses of Parliament invited the new king to come to them in Westminster Hall. He has no right of entry. He has to be invited because Parliament is sovereign. The king reigns, but Parliament rules. That is how it's done in a constitutional monarchy, and it's a system that works. The king has a royal prerogative. He has the right to know, he has the right to encourage, and he has the right to warn. And that is how it works. But the administration of the country, the government, is carried on by the Prime Minister of the day, the First Lord of the Treasury, to give him or her her official title, the First Lord of the Treasury and her ministers. And it's the efficacy of a constitutional monarchy has been proved time and time again. I always believe it suits the British temperament rather well, rather than having, as you have in America perfectly rightly, presidential campaigns that go on for 18 months and are quite bitter and rancorous and divisive, and nothing is more divisive than American politics as it is at the moment. Yes, indeed. And of course, you can't see it from outside the cathedral, but the people are filing by. They're not gawping, they're walking respectfully by. They're pausing to look at the coffin and the four royal mourners at the four corners of their mother's coffin on the catafalque, the raised dais upon which it rests. It is extraordinary. Very rarely seen, very rarely photographed. I think never quite like this, and certainly never televised before. King George V died in 1936 in January. He did have four sons, and I think that's probably why the tradition arose, because there were four sons. The man who became Edward the Eighth. And then there was the Duke of York, who then became King George VI. And then there was the Duke of Gloucester and his youngest surviving son, who was the Duke of Kent. So that is how it happened, because that king, King George V, the grandfather of the empire, he had four sons, and that's how it came about. And when the Queen Mother died, it was her grandsons also joined the party who stood vigil. Before that, and at other times when King George VI died, it's mainly guardsmen or members of the household cavalry who stand in the vigil. And when Winston Churchill was there, the same was maintained for him. Interestingly, when the king is now walking over towards the Queen Consort, people are rising. The prince's vigil appears to be over. He's leading his siblings towards the door of the church, St. Giles's Cathedral, a great and wonderful place full of tradition. Well, we have actually seen history there. We're seeing history every day. These are days of history. It's completely unprecedented. And the access that has been given, I think, is part of the openness and transparency that the new king wants. He wants people to see what goes on, and certainly we've all benefited from that. He has referred to that. Late in life, he's 73, 74 in November. He's referred to that this is his lot for those years that God gives him. But he's declared his determination to carry out those tasks to the best of his ability, and I'm quite sure he will. He has all the makings of it. He certainly had the example of his mother. He's had enough time to prepare, and his heart is in the right place. He wants to do good, and that's no bad thing. I know my family and I, we lived in Edinburgh for 3 years. We know these streets very well indeed. And this is a very ancient and wonderful thoroughfare winding down to Holyrood House, full of history. Every stone has a story to tell. And the fact that it's all happened there has somehow actually reinforced the importance of the monarchy to the Union, something that the Queen strove to do throughout her life.